But it's not in the same way that you think of Jurassic Park where they're, we're going to extract DNA and use that. Yeah. We're just sequencing it. So we're creating a digital copy of their DNA. It tells us exactly what the base pair order of their entire chromosomal structure was.
Welcome to the Hidden City Podcast. I'm Grant.
And I'm Doug, and we're here to share some of the incredible stories and people from Oak Cliff that you might not know.
We're going to sit down with some of the visionaries, craftsmen, and business owners who have shaped Oak Cliff into what it is today.
Oak Cliff is on the south bank of the Trinity River, a few miles south of downtown Dallas. While technically it was part of Dallas, it was its own city for a long time, and it still has that independent spirit.
We'll dive into the history and the spirit of this place, exploring the different challenges and successes that defined it.
This is The Hidden City, a podcast about the people and the stories that make Oak Cliff extraordinary. Welcome to this episode of the Hidden City Podcast. Today we have a neighbor and friend, Matt James, who is the Chief Animal Officer of Colossal Laboratories and Biosciences and is also the Executive Director of Colossal Foundation. Matt, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, Matt, we love getting the show started off with kind of some of the Oak Cliff origins. And we know the Dallas Zoo is in your DNA, and kind of like you being here in the neighborhood is kind of how you started on some of your conservation in this area. Tell us a little bit how that started and kind of where you started in here in Oak Cliff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was, before moving to Dallas, I was living in Miami, Florida. I was the general curator of Zoo Miami. So it's a big zoo down there. It's like 1,100 acres, 4,000 animals, massive zoo, amazing collection. But I was buddies with Harrison Adele, who used to be the vice president out at the zoo. And he had called me about a job. And so I'd reached out and we kind of got to talking, and then I got to visit Dallas and visit the zoo. Cool. And I thought, wow, like I really fell in love with the city. My wife and I fell in love with the city and the zoo and everything. Great people. And his husband was a real estate agent. So when I took the job, he was like, hey, if you need a realtor, my husband's a realtor. And I was like, great, that'd be awesome. So he showed us around the city on my interview. First day, we just did an hour-long or a full day-long tour of the city. We looked at every neighborhood, and he saved Oak Cliff for last. And they were living in Oak Cliff, so I think he knew what he was doing. Right?
Okay, so he's like, I'm going to show you around a little bit, and I'm going to take you to the real spot.
Exactly. So we looked at everything, and we found Oak Cliff. And it reminded us a lot of an old neighborhood we used to live in Tampa, Florida, called Seminole Heights.
Oh, cool.
Really sort of similar vibes, similar era, really trendy stuff. And so we loved it right away, and he helped us find a home in Oak Cliff. So we ended up moving here. We lived up over in Ravinia Heights.
Ravinia is great.
It was really cool. So house in the middle of the hills and trees, and you wouldn't have no idea you're in Dallas.
Yeah, it's a little pocket.
Yeah, and then my wife and I we got pregnant. We had a baby 20 months ago now.
Oh wow, congrats, man. That's awesome.
So about the time we found out she was pregnant, we were like, oh no, we need more space. We had like a little bachelor pad almost because we both traveled so much for work. And so we found a great spot in Winnetka Heights.
Nice.
So we're right over there by Nova and everything, and we love it so much.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the show started. Just Nova, Cannons, you got
see a show at the Kessler,
PhD. I mean, Wayward, all those places in that corner just.
Get your haircut.
Great. You can do it all right there. You don't even ever have to leave.
No, I get my coffee every morning over at Wayward. I get my haircut once a month at High Lonesome Lounge. We go to Ari's Pantry. Dude, we eat and drink at Cannons. We walk down to like Old Monk. We'll get drinks at Tiny Victories. It couldn't be better. So we love it because it's sort of a tiny neighborhood, but you're in a big city.
Yeah, 100%. You said the Dallas Zoo. I'm curious what drew you to the Dallas Zoo, because we had Chris Corpus on.
Yeah.
My mind was blown too when we talked with him about how vast the Dallas Zoo's conservation efforts are.
Oldest zoo in Texas.
Oldest and largest zoo.
And largest zoo. Like it was. I was learning so much on that episode. So what drew you into that?
So I was really lucky. I was managing an incredible collection of animals in Zoo Miami. We had sort of infinite potential there. But what drew me to Dallas Zoo was really what the way they sort of walk their talk, right? Like they talk about being a conservation first organization, and they have always been committed to that. And so when I took that visit, and I had some friends that I knew there, and they had a great reputation, and I think that was this idea that I've always been focused on mission and impact. How can I grow my impact with a focus on the long-term mission of making extinction a thing of the past, right? Like, what can I do to put my fingerprint on that type of mission? And Dallas Zoo was a great step towards that. So I had an amazing opportunity to go and sort of expand my horizons, get more into the conservation space, work with amazing people like Chris Corpus. And so it was a blessing. We were so lucky when we found Dallas and we found the Dallas Zoo.
That's awesome. So you brought up making extinction a thing of the past. And obviously Colossal is aiming to reverse extinction. Can you tell us what that means? And then also maybe how you went from Dallas Zoo into a job like that?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, 2021, we launched Colossal, right? It's only been a little more than 4 years, which is kind of crazy. It feels like 40 years and 4 months all at once. Like, it's been an incredible journey, jam-packed with that action, but it's gone by in a blink. We launched in 2021 with this idea of making extinction a thing of the past. That's a really cute way of saying we can reverse extinction. So we are a genetic engineering firm, sort of a biotechnology, synthetic biology firm that's focused on leveraging various technologies, a whole suite of technologies in order to reverse extinctions. So de-extinction is sort of this intersection of really compelling things like genetic engineering, genomic sequencing, assisted reproduction, and then all the way into rewilding and reintroducing animals back to the wild, right? Incredible stuff. And so it was this compelling idea of using all those technologies to be able to sort of recreate a mammoth. Could you bring a mammoth back to Earth, right? Like 4,000 years ago, mammoths went extinct. Humans had a pretty significant hand in sort of in finishing their extinction, essentially. And so there is some responsibility that we carry, but there's also this really amazing sort of nature-based solution to creating mammoths and creating other species. And so if you can focus on this idea that ecosystems are like Jenga puzzles, right? And every time you lose a species, you knock one of those blocks out, and the Jenga puzzle loses this stability. De-extinction is the idea that you can start to put the blocks back in the space and secure and restore ecosystems, restore stability. So by using keystone species like mammoths, and then we eventually added thylacines, or the Tasmanian tiger, the dodo.
Dodo is what I saw. Yeah, that's crazy.
We just announced the MOA. And last April, we announced that we brought back the direwolf.
The direwolf.
And that's what got the Time magazine, right? Like the front cover of that.
New York Times articles. We were in the New Yorker. It was nuts.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was an incredible month. It was probably added, 10 years to my age. Right? But it was amazing. It was really good. But all these technologies are incredible because we can put species back in the wild in a way that makes meaningful difference to things like carbon sequestration, so fighting global climate change, to improving biodiversity, like creating ecological niches for other animals to thrive, creating ecosystems that are far from human development so that nature has a space to thrive away from humans. So it was this really compelling idea. And so I jumped on board, and I think maybe there were 15 or 20 of us when I started, right? And I remember people at the zoo, people in my zoo community, all going, "What the hell are you doing?"
What is this? What is this sci-fi kind of like?
I do think that's like when people first hear what, like, I remember hearing the woolly mammoth years ago and being like, "What?" And I think there's this
like a joke, but then the direwolf kind of came in, and you're like, "Oh, this is real."
But I imagine people do have like very intense reactions to that conversation.
I think what's incredible about it is that all of those technologies that we're talking about, this idea of making extinction a thing of the past, is not just restoring extinct species, it's also preventing future extinctions. So it is a two-fronted war. We say we're going to make extinction a thing of the past by creating technologies to undo extinction, creating technologies to protect species today. And that's what really was my hook, right? That's what pulled me in. And so we've been doing incredible work ever since. But I think what's also, understood by most people when we talk to kids, when we talk to young adults, the inspiration side of it is really incredible. I mean, the same way that, and I hate, I'll always be the first one to bring Jurassic Park up because somebody's going to bring it up.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
But and I hate to make any parallels to Jurassic Park, but the same way that when I was a kid and I saw Jurassic Park and I said, "Oh my God, imagine if science was ever possible like that," it drew me into a field that eventually led to this, right? So in the same way, we're able to inspire kids. We're able to inspire young adults. I think we're even able to inspire adults to either maybe not create a career of it, but at least have a mindset of conservation.
Today's show is brought to you by Oak Cliff Brewing Co. Are you interested in unwinding and connecting with neighbors over a great beer? Then go visit Oak Cliff Brewing Co. They've got a great tap room with all sorts of great beers on tap. It's a full production brewery here in the heart of Oak Cliff. Visit oakcliffbrewing.com to find out what's on tap right now and where you can find fresh beer made right here in Oak Cliff.
I have a couple of kids, and it reminds me a little bit of like we'll watch the rocket launches from like SpaceX and stuff on TV, and they're inspired. They're like, what is this thing? And so like I could see something like this where you're not just you're being proactive in a way where you're like, I'm creating, I'm going after, I'm pushing forward in a field. There's something I think innately inspiring about that to children, but also, I mean, even adults. I know I want to go see one of those launches someday now. Like it's just, but hearing this kind of stuff too, there's a, I could see a very
opens the
inspirational
imagination, I think, for kids, but 100%. I think adults too. But I think certainly like, your sons are like, what is that? I've never seen anything like that. And you're kind of sitting there like, this is kind of cutting edge. This is new. And I think that Colossal's doing very similar things. And
we could debate until we're blue in the face. We could take all day to debate the ethics and moralities and the should-use and shouldn't-use of de-extinction, of even various forms and facets of conservation, I think. But what we can all agree on is that when we announced the dire wolves in April, when we announced the launch of woolly mammoth 4 years ago, we had kids and parents sitting at dinner tables talking about
conservation,
things like conservation, extinction, and those. Bringing those topics to the forefront of a discussion is really powerful. It's the first step in behavior change, right? Conservation is about behavior change. How can we change people's behavior in a way that positively impacts nature? And Chris Corpus is amazing at that. That's what he was really great with at Dallas Zoo. I think that's what Colossal's really good at as well. Colossal's creating an inspiration and a brand that helps people and kids talk about things that are more important than some silly 6'7" dancer, or some Kardashian.
Doing 6'7", right? I love it, dude. Right? That's great. No, like I think some of those things, like Chris with the whooping crane and some of this other stuff, it is really inspiring. But like there are moments too where these companies, and it takes a lot to put a ship into space. It takes a lot to de-extinct something. Like, so there's a big effort behind these things, and I think there's a lot to debate, I'm sure, but there's also like good conversations that are happening because of this. Because someone was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go after this."
It takes a lot, which means it takes a lot of resources.
Yes,
and
that's what I'm saying.
Resources become a debate, right? So in 4 years' time, Colossal's gone from a startup worth nothing to worth more than $10 billion.
Wow.
We've raised more than $550 million from venture capital. We've raised more than $100 million for the foundation. Right, so we're talking about $650 million of new novel funding that would not have otherwise gone into the conservation space. That's now being injected into one of the most under-resourced fields of science. So for me, that's a huge win.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah, I want to get into the foundation stuff more too. And for people who don't know Colossal, I mean, give us the big benchmarks too. So woolly mammoth 4 years ago, dire wolf.
We announced the dire wolf in April. 3 years ago, we announced that we were starting the Tasmanian tiger, or the thylacine project. So that's a species. Carnivorous marsupial went extinct in 1936. It was driven to extinction because of a government subsidized eradication program. They were afraid that they were a threat to livestock like sheep. Turns out they're not. By the time they realized they weren't really a threat and this was a really unique species that they should conserve, it was too late, right? The last one was being removed from the landscape.
And I think I heard Ben was on Joe Rogan's show talking about some of this, but like, is it marsupial or is it like, so it wasn't even, I don't know. It wasn't as aggressive as maybe they were thinking.
It looks like a dog or a wolf. And so people sort of had that same thing. And most of the settlers in Australia came from England, and the English and Western Europeans had mythologies about how evil and dangerous wolves were. So that just sort of translated into
fascinating people group too.
But what happened when the Tasmanian tiger was removed from the landscape is suddenly there was no apex predator. And if you think about like when the wolves were removed from Montana and Yellowstone National Park and then they were put back in, there's this trophic cascade that happens that helps rebalance an ecosystem. What they have now is an imbalance. So they have no apex predator. There's nobody controlling things like sick animals. So disease spreads. So if you've ever heard of Tasmanian devil facial tumor disease, it's literally a contagious tumor that they bite each other. It's a way they socialize and it spreads the tumor. If those sick animals were on the landscape with a thylacine or Tasmanian tiger, they'd be predated and they wouldn't have the opportunity to spread their disease. Right?
Wow.
And then you've seen a huge surge in populations for middle level herbivores. So some of the macropods like the wallabies, things like brush-tailed possums that are just overtaking everything. And then they have invasive species like cats. And
Chief Animal Officer Grant.
There he is. I like
let's
it.
Go.
Yeah.
Well, the consequences and the
Dude,
like domino effect of those decisions is really interesting to me too, because I think,
second, third, fourth consequence. You just like hearing you explain that. I'm like, how do you're almost like not playing. There's this fear that you're like any little changes can change so much.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's an interesting, like with the Tasmanian devil, it was like, took that out. Okay, all these second and third order consequences that they had not seen coming. I think about it, it's interesting from the colossal side, like when you do bring back a species, what are those second and third order consequences?
Yeah.
What are those things that you have to think about, and how do you think about that? Because
we took one out, and now if you put one back,
right,
like,
what happens?
There's still consequences, and that's like negative sometimes, but like there's still effects to all these things.
And there's intended consequences and there's unintended consequences.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we're responsible with, one of the things I'm tasked with, my team's tasked with, is this idea of sort of mapping that out. How do you model ecosystems in a really interesting way where you can begin to predict what those consequences would be, both intended and unintended. And so when we create a species, right, when the thylacine is back from extinction and we want to put it back into Tasmania, it's not as if you can just take it from the lab and drop it in Tasmania and say, Godspeed, go do your thing. Right?
Let nature do its thing. You're like,
this is a stage-gated, multi-generational process. It's really painfully slow. For somebody like me, I think, hopefully we could do it in my lifetime. Right? We can create the animals, but the rewilding part takes decades. So what you would do is you would have the animals in human care, like a zoo type of setting. Obviously not on exhibit, but we're talking about like heavy human intervention. World's experts on how to take care of those animals. And you eventually, over generations, you remove your intervention, you give them more space. Remove intervention, give them, until they're showing you all the signs that these are semi-wild, more wild animals that then could thrive on their own back in the wild. And then you make that move. But along that way, you also have to have the parallel sort of human engineering piece. How do I go to Tasmania and tell somebody there's going to be a 60-pound carnivore in your backyard now? Right? Most people have to warm up to that idea. And we see that right now.
For that to...
The wolves in the United States, right, after this amazing thing that happened in 1995 when we brought wolves back from Canada, put them into Yellowstone National Park, almost saved one of the most unique landscapes in America single-handedly by putting wolves back.
I don't feel like I fully understand that story.
I've heard some of that, and then the other part is they've done this in Colorado. I remember they kind of got into that a little bit too. But tell us the Yellowstone side.
Right. Wolves were extirpated from Idaho, Montana, Wyoming area, that Yellowstone National Park area.
Okay.
And over years, you saw elk populations boom. You saw them start to overgraze. They began to overgraze the willows along the banks of the rivers. Now there's no root system that's holding the soil in place. So you had these amazing switchback rivers with oxbow features, and you had beavers in there, and you were able to slow the flow that made it more useful for the ecosystem. You removed the wolves, you got more elk, you had fewer willows, and you lost
all
the
whole
consequences. The river just started flowing straight and fast and shallow and eroding banks. And so you lost all this biodiversity, this unique biodiversity that was really greater Yellowstone ecosystem. You put wolves back in, you reduced that population, allowed willows to thrive. And willows brought back beavers. Beavers slowed the flow.
Dude,
you got the switch back to the river, and suddenly you had animals thriving along the banks of the river. In the same way, if you did that in Tasmania, you could find, not that exact example, but you'll find other second, third order consequences.
Huh. That's
so fascinating.
No, it is amazing. And hearing on the Tasmanian tiger side too, just like, hey, you said 60-pound is going to be potentially like reintroduced there. I feel like the way Colossal's thinking about this, like, we'll think in terms of decades, Grant, I feel like, but like Colossal's like, I think in terms of 1,000 years, centuries,
millennia.
Yeah, he's like, maybe in my lifetime I'll see some of this.
But in the same challenge, what's interesting is we have to think in 1,000-year
I
frame.
believe you. Yeah.
But we also have to think about tomorrow because we are a startup company. Right?
Oh yeah.
We just,
it's not like you have a
We're not a
survive.
government organization.
Yeah.
But that's what's really cool about Colossal, I think, is the fact that we're not your traditional conservation organization. We're not a government agency, and we're not a nonprofit. So we operate very fast. So we're always thinking about tomorrow. What are we going to achieve tomorrow? Where I think some of those other organizations have the luxury, or just the way that they're built in their strategy is to be much more long term. We have to do both.
It's both and. Yeah.
But because we're able to raise a lot of eyebrows, we're able to raise a lot of money, and that money helps us think long term and create long term sustainability, but demand short term success.
Yeah, I think it's a healthy balance actually for an organization to have that pressure of what's going to happen
tomorrow,
in the next year, and also like we have enough support too that we're thinking about how to survive for 20, 30,
we're talking about our nonprofit that we work for.
Many more years than that.
Yeah.
But so I'm curious, when we're talking about de-extinction, are we really bringing these animals back from extinction, or is it like, can you explain that side of it to me? Because it sounds like you said earlier, kind of sci-fi-esque, where it's like literally almost
cutting
like playing
edge,
God.
cutting
Almost.
edge.
Well, it's a good point. We should take a step back and just explain how de-extinction works.
Okay,
right?
cool.
So we talk about functional de-extinction. This is the idea that we can recreate the function of an animal that was lost.
Yep.
And the way you do that is typically by phenotypically or like physically recreating that animal, right? So de-extinction is this idea that you can go back in time and you can find specimens in the landscape. Woolly mammoths did us a favor. They died in freezers, right? So there's really nice preserved specimens. You get beautiful DNA from these.
That's cool.
Tasmanian tiger didn't go
maybe some in a museum or
but
something.
Then we found
beautiful
specimens that were a museum curator preserved a pup in ethanol. Beautiful.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes,
Whoa,
dude, crazy. So, but you're looking for this older.
We're trying to find DNA.
Yeah,
but it's not in the same way that you think of Jurassic Park, where we're going to extract DNA and use that. Yeah. We're just sequencing it, so we're creating a digital copy of their DNA. It tells us exactly what the base pair order of their entire chromosomal structure was. That then allows us to use our sort of AI-powered genomic analysis software and say, what is the closest living relative to this animal? And it tells us, in the case of the mammoth, that's an Asian elephant. Thylacine, that's a little mouse-sized marsupial called a fat-tailed dunnart.
Wow,
it's crazy, right?
It's like something only AI could tell you. It's like,
and dodo would be most closely related to a Nicobar pigeon, which is a beautiful pigeon from the Pacific.
Cool.
And then what we do is we use that same software package in order to tell us, where are these animals the same and where are they different?
Fascinating.
More importantly, where is it that every time you see this animal, this woolly mammoth or this thylacine, it's always the same? Because that's really critical. That tells you, that's highly conserved. That's important to the species. We then select those specific genes that would take a Nicobar pigeon into a dodo or elephant into a mammoth, and then we bring those into the mammoth the elephant genome or the dodo or the pigeon genome in order to create a cell line that has as close to the DNA sequence of the original as possible. You're not going to get to 100% with today's technology. But what we're doing is trying to pick those key physical traits that result in key functions. So to your earlier question, when we make an embryo and that becomes an animal, is it the exact replica of that lost species? No. Is it as close as we can get? Yes. And is it going to perform the exact functions we need it to in the ecosystem? Because remember, we're talking about putting the block back in the ecosystem.
Got it. So that's kind of
Is it, Grant, or is it not? It's about as close as it can be.
And what's interesting is if you look at one mammoth that comes from, say, Alaska from 10,000 years ago and another mammoth that came from Siberia 250,000 years ago. Those are the same species. Yeah. But their genome is vastly different. Yeah. Like there's huge variability.
They've changed over
this
time.
This idea of always trying to exactly replicate what was lost is sort of a fallacy because best you could do is maybe take an average of everything that was lost and make that copy. It's not the same, though,
Oh, that is fascinating because it changes and adapts over time. So you're kind of saying even woolly mammoth. Which one are you talking about?
It's easier for people to think that nature is static.
Yeah.
Sure. It's easier for us. We even talk about habitat restoration. Yeah. There's this amazing guy, the guy that led the Yellowstone wolf reintroduction, his name Mike Phillips. He says, restore to what? He's always got that idea.
Yeah.
In the U.S., we say restore to 1492. Right? This idea that what was the U.S. before Europeans came?
Yeah.
But also, humans were on the landscape well before
Oh,
Europeans
for
got
sure.
here.
Right.
For sure.
And humans were having an impact on that. But also without humans, nature is going to be this dynamic process.
Yeah. It's
So-
never that's really good to think through when you're kind of defining it. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, it's not just one exact thing or the exact moment. Because I mean, you're talking about different animals coming in, like horses coming in early on,
Yeah.
and that changes the landscape on all. Yeah, there's
And
a
I
lot
like
of-
that North Star of like, we're just trying to put the pieces back into the Jenga puzzle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be an exact replica, because that's a bottomless question almost.
Yeah.
It's like, how
Yeah.
do you even
Yeah.
get to that?
And we talk about engineering for tomorrow, not engineering for yesterday, because
Yeah.
yesterday's gone.
Yeah.
Climate's different, right? We've all
Yep.
talked about that plenty, right? There's much more human development on the landscape.
Yeah.
So we have to create species and ecosystems that will thrive in tomorrow's climate
Yeah.
and tomorrow's, disruption
Yeah.
that humans
Yeah.
will present.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating.
I'm curious, when you're thinking about this process, what is because I think there's people that are skeptical about it, excited about it. There's like a lot of emotion around it.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. I mean,
I think that's just natural for people to do too. But what is there a risk to the work that you guys are doing that you see and you're like, this is a pitfall that we need to avoid when we're going down this path? And then I'm also just curious too, like early on, what were some moments where you were like, oh man, like this is
wild.
real.
This
We are
this
actually
is-
able
yeah.
to like
Yeah,
do what we're
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
do now. Like I would love to hear some of that too.
Yeah, I think for me, from an ethical standpoint, thinking about always, we should always be asking if or should we or why type of questions.
Yeah.
And so we do that a lot. For me, it's easy to say, like, there are going to be pitfalls. Anytime you unlock a powerful technology, there are unintended consequences,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like we're seeing this, living it today with AI.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So in a similar vein, that AI could save the world, could cure human diseases, right? All this amazing power, but it also could be used for nefarious purposes. So from our standpoint, our goal is to help create responsible regulation, be a subject matter expert. So I go to DC, right?
wow.
We meet with
Cool.
international policymakers
Yeah.
and we say, here's the art of the possible. This is where we'd like to take it. We'd love to put guardrails on it with you, but we need that clear path to success because we can't sort of step on innovation.
Yeah.
Right.
Regulate ourselves to where we just stop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if we're asking ourselves the right question of should you do this, which easy answer is always no. And I don't know how this could be used, so the easy answer is no. But if we all take the same sort of landscape view of where we sit today with conservation, is that despite 100 years of amazing effort, right? If we go all the way back to like Aldo Leopold and look at what the conservation movement started as, there's been incredible people doing incredible work.
Yeah.
We've been pouring our hearts into it. There are amazing people like Dallas and Chris Corpus and all the work they're doing.
Yeah.
But if we take one step back, we go, over the last 100 years, we're actually further behind the 8 ball than we were when we started this whole endeavor.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
Tell me
not
what you mean
because
by
of
that.
there's-
Like it's
not because
the
of lack of
details.
effort,
Yeah.
but the rate of biodiversity loss is faster today than it was 100 years ago.
I see what you're saying. Like we're losing more animals than we're conserving.
Yeah.
Or I guess like.
Well, the rate of human destruction on nature is outpacing our ability to conserve it.
That's a clear way.
Despite the
For
best
me,
efforts,
that's
it's
a
like
clear way
still
for me to
increasing.
understand that. Yeah.
And our conservation effort has gone up. Our
Yeah.
conservation impact has gone up. That just tells you how much the rate of destruction has gone up.
It
Right.
reminds me a little bit. It's not exactly the same, but like there's a developer friend of ours, mentor Monty. He talked about gentrification in cities where gentrification in cities where it's like, hey, this is a natural process, but like, how do you do it in a way that is healthy and good and ethical? Versus, and I kind of hear this with this as well. Where it's like, humans are gonna keep growing, and this is the designing for the future kind of thing. It's like, no, this is still a part of. We're not gonna like take humans out. This is just natural process of this. How do we do this well though in this whole entire thing? And you're kind of having a sober mind at this a little bit is how I kind of relate this in some way.
And if we look at it and say we could do nothing from a de-extinction standpoint, that means we're accepting status quo in my book.
Yeah,
and I'm not willing to accept status quo. I've seen the amazing people that have poured their hearts into conservation, and I want to see them succeed more.
Today's show is brought to you by Waxspace. Are you looking for a place in Oak Cliff to connect and meet other neighbors? Then Waxspace is the place for you. Come join the Neighborhood Work Club, and for just $80 a month, you can get all the things you need to be productive at work. Why work from home when you can work from a place with other neighbors? We've got cold brew, fresh coffee all day, phone booths for your meetings. We've got a podcast studio and a lot of other amenities here. So visit thewaxspace.com to learn more and sign up today.
You're saying the American red wolf, you said there's maybe 40 different projects that you're kind of looking at. And also there's only 2 white rhinos.
Two northern white rhinos.
2 northern white rhinos. How does Colossal's work help that kind of effort? Or how do you kind of use these technologies to kind of look at some of these projects?
So early on when Ben Lamb, our CEO, was bringing me in, I had a lot of these questions about, that woolly mammoth, cool idea, right? Love that idea. I think it's the way it could inspire kids, but also what are you talking about? Right?
Just to do it, to do it?
To do it. And then he started talking about impact and what it could do, what the mammoth itself could do on the landscape. And I said, but what about, what do those technologies do for Asian elephants, for African elephants? Cool. And so that he was already thinking, Ben's always 12 steps ahead. And so he's like, that's why you're here, dum-dum. Like, come and do something, build a strategy, right? And so he was really great, and he kind of let us run with it. And so we quickly, before the foundation was launched, it was only Colossal for the first 3 years, and we were sort of incubating this foundation idea, this idea that we could apply all these technologies to various projects. And so for 3 years, we were just pulling it out of my operating budget, and we were going and doing really cool stuff.
That's neat.
Cool.
Until one day our investors and Ben said, you guys are doing amazing work. We should pull this out, make it its own entity that doesn't affect the business side. Mm-hmm. And we'll double down our investment. So our investors put more money into the foundation. Awesome. Ben's taking money and putting it into the foundation from Colossal so that we can really fuel this amazing work. And now we have a team of 8 people that just are dedicated to that side of the organization.
And you're running this as the executive director?
I sort of am the only one that bridges both bodies. Cool. And that's important because this sort of came from Colossal Biosciences. Now it's Colossal Foundation. It's nice to have that ability, and I can go in the lab and work with my embryologist. I can go meet with some of the genome engineers, and we can understand what is possible today. And then we go back to the foundation side and go find projects that could benefit from this technology. Cool. So that's what we've done. It's been really incredible. We now even have things that are outside of maybe what you would assume the de-extinction tool set is, and we have things like artificial intelligence engineers that all they do is they create tools that use computer vision and bioacoustics to track and monitor animals in the wild. African elephants in Samburu National Park in Kenya, we're using computer vision programs so that instead of collaring them, so you have to dart them from a helicopter, knock them down, you put this $20,000 collar on them, it works for a couple of years, maybe it doesn't. We're using computer vision and static cameras and drones in order to create like individual elephant identification. So then the AI can tell you, I've seen that elephant before. I saw him yesterday, 20 miles
over here.
And so now you're creating this high resolution data set of elephant movements, which then tells you where you should be putting your conservation efforts. Right? These are important corridors. These are important watering holes, whatever it might be. Yeah. And so we're doing that with elephants. We're now doing that with wolves in Yellowstone National Park. Okay. Working with a great group at Yellowstone National Park called the Yellowstone Wolf Project. That's run by the National Park Service and then partnered with this other group, Grizzly Systems, that's created this incredible camera and bioacoustic monitor system. And our AI can help report real time. We heard wolves, and now we're getting to the point where we can say, we think we heard this wolf, or we think we heard this wolf pack, and this is what they're doing, this is what's happening. And then it also takes pictures, 360-degree video and picture to tell you contextually, this is what was happening in the area. And then if you can pair context with a call, you can begin to unlock the language of a wolf, which for me, when I talk about conservation and storytelling, that's the most powerful thing. If I can go to Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, where that's the only place in the United States where it's legal to shoot a wolf outside of the national park, but in those states, the densest wolf population in the U.S., right? If we can go there and say, hey, these aren't mindless hunters that are after your cattle. These are empathetic emotionally complex animals that deserve to coexist on the landscape with us, then you can tell stories in a way that hopefully changes behavior over generations. Because we have generational trauma of cattlemen and wolves.
Sure.
And wolves have impacted their business in the past. I think we can have tools like that today that help mitigate it, both by helping create compassion for the wolf, but also that AI can then also say, oh, that wolf pack has a history of depredation of cattle. You need, somebody alert that cattleman and have them deploy mitigation strategies.
Wow.
It's fascinating. I mean, you're really connecting a lot of the AI technology, just technology in general, to conservation in a way that it sounds like has not been done yet. And you're bringing that to people that, can actually have better harmony with the environment if they've got better data to kind of look at, rather than wolf equals bad. It's like, no, this wolf pack over here actually maybe has been problematic for cattle, so we're going to do something about that. But generally speaking, maybe that not always the
you're
case.
getting more information. You're getting more even surveillance, almost in a sense. Like you're getting. I'm just like, I don't actually know how this works, but my guess is like there's like a computer and you see this wolf pack and these sounds over here, and you're able to like kind of understand like, hey, this group needs this, or this needs this, or this is coming in this area, and you're just it seems like, I don't know, the CIA, but for animals.
Yeah, and that's what Colossal
awesome.
represents, is this idea that we, obviously we're a tech firm, so we're always going to look at every problem through a tech lens.
Sure.
And go, this needs technology.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, but we can work with amazing people like what they do at the National Park Service in Yellowstone, what the state agency people do outside of the national park boundaries, and say, here's a tool. Here you go. Here's the user interface that shows you this wolf pack is currently over here. This wolf pack's over here. You've got cattle running through the middle. You should be thinking, how do we...
This might be an issue. Yeah.
But it sounds like that's technology that a lot of groups have never really had access to or have even considered, because they're just not tech companies.
At the government level, we all know that, things like state agencies and federal agencies for conservation are underfunded, right? We know at the NGO level, they're underfunded. Technology is expensive in the beginning. Right? To develop it, R&D is hard, it's expensive. But what Colossal can do is sort of bear that brunt, develop the technology, sort of democratize it, find an economy of scale, and deploy it, and say, this is now a cheap everyday tool that you get to deploy.
That's fascinating. Are there any certain stories or wins that like you've experienced over the last couple of years where you're just like, this has been, people need to know this more, like this type of conservation effort I mean, one that's right here in our backyard is the story of the American red wolf, right? So everybody knows about gray wolves, and that's like the big bad wolf that everybody thinks about, but the red wolf is the only wolf that's endemic to the United States. So you can only find red wolves in the U.S. In the 60s and 70s, it was pretty evident that we were pretty close to driving them to extinction. In the 70s and 80s, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife decided to intervene, and they went and caught the remaining red wolves of what they thought were red wolves off the landscape out of Louisiana and Texas. Wow.
So these were endemic to the southeast, kind of almost from the northeast all the way into Florida, and then all the way over to South Texas.
Wow.
And we pretty much drove them to extinction through eradication, and then we were also pushing coyotes from the west into the east, and that's why now today, if you're like sitting on Cedar Creek right over here, you'll see coyotes using that like a superhighway.
Oh, dude. Doug knows this
I've got a
intimately, actually.
House over there, and it's like I have my little emerald camera that's there, and I got awesome owls, and there's raccoons going and all this, but I just see coyotes nonstop.
If you wound the clock back 100 years, those would have been red wolves out there, not coyotes. Coyotes didn't really, they were driven over here. And so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service took this amazing effort, and they captured 14 animals that they said, these are the last remaining red wolves. Now it turns out that in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have DNA sequencing technology. We couldn't sequence an animal and go, oh, that's red wolf, that's coyote. And so what they actually did is they left a lot of genetics on the landscape, and they didn't know it. So today there is a reintroduction program. So they took those 14 off the landscape, built a captive breeding program that big zoos in the U.S. are helping to manage in partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and they're releasing those back into a release site in North Carolina. At one point, that population was like more than 150 150 or something like that, or maybe even more than 200, I think. And the population since crashed. I mean, there's just not a lot of social acceptance for those wolves over there.
Oh,
there's a lot of
interesting.
car strikes, right?
Oh no, okay.
Really?
Yeah, wolves running across the road getting hit by cars.
Okay.
It happens a lot. And then we also see really low levels of genetic diversity in this captive population. Makes sense. They only took 14 off the landscape.
Yeah.
Only 12 of those ended up breeding. So you went to 150 or more animals from 12, right? There's going to be pretty limited pool of diversity in there. But since they accidentally left all these other animals on the landscape that they thought were coyotes, but actually were red wolves or had high levels of red wolf, there's some mix, some hybridization, integration that occurs. What we've done is we've partnered with this amazing researcher at Princeton, Bridget Von Holt, her partner at Michigan Tech, Kristen Bresky. And what they've found is that there's animals on the landscape in our backyards that have more than 80% genetic ancestry to the red wolf.
Wow. Whoa. That's a ton.
Which is almost equivalent, or in some cases equivalent to what founded the population that we have today.
That's really fascinating.
So what we're doing now is when we announced in April the dire wolf was born, we also announced that we had cloned 4 American red wolves, first ever. So these were animals that came from Louisiana and Texas. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife doesn't recognize them as red wolf. They're actually coyotes. But if you look at their genetics, you know, these are red wolves, guys. I don't know. I hate to break it to you. I understand the service hasn't caught up yet, but these are red wolves. So we have those 4 animals.
Is it
those
you can
are
tell
now,
with the look? Is that what you mean? Like, or is that?
Well, so Kristen and Bridget have been on the landscape in Louisiana and Texas for a long time, taking genetic samples. We run those samples, and then using comparative genomics, you can go, oh wow, there's actually a lot more red wolf than we expect. We selected the best candidates, cloned those, and those animals now represent sort of we call it genetic rescue, a genetic rescue effort that can then be applied to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service population and say, we found fresh genetics to help restore your population.
Wow. Okay.
So incredible work, and that's all because of the power of de-extinction.
Wow. So
it's
100 years from now, red wolves?
100 years, maybe less.
That's really interesting.
It is fascinating. I mean, it's so cool to me. I think that you're kind of looking at these at-risk species and applying data to them and having the technology to actually do something about it rather than just, I mean, like you said, thinking back to the 70s versus now, like how much technology has changed the way that we can understand, a species or understand the best way to help them. It's cool to see it in action.
Yeah, you're like using your mind and the tools of the age to like kind of bring about like the best kind of nurturing aspect of you can in this way. And I do think there's a part where you're like, okay, what are the consequences? But you're trying to do the best you can. I think that's something that I'm hearing.
I think, even if you remove the technology aspect, take Colossal out of the equation, we just look at conventional conservation and the way it's deployed today. There are a lot of questions that go, why that species?
Yeah,
right? Those ethical dilemmas exist no matter the
outside
context.
of the tech kind of side of some of this.
And so those ethical dilemmas have been around, and we've always said, well, we need to find ways just to do the best we can. I think now we're doing the best we can with technology, but technology is also going to inform us what the best is.
Right. You can actually go to the data. That's fascinating. Well, so thinking about what's going on at Colossal these days, is there anything that you're like behind the scenes right now really excited about, or things that
are coming up
that might be going on that you can actually talk about that are like kind of interesting or new?
Yeah, I mean, as you might expect, and if you looked at our history, Ben, our CEO's got this really powerful ability to communicate and create sort of a brand, and so he's always has this cadence of announcements, and so we're sitting on a year or more.
I love it. Okay, cool.
Right?
So you're letting it build up.
So in other words, stay tuned.
Definitely stay tuned. But it's been exciting. We had originally, what was incredible is when we started, we had a little shared office space at Continental Gin Building in Bellum.
Of course.
Oh, nice.
And we were up on the 3rd floor. There's like 13 of us in that office or something like that. Then we moved downstairs to a big private office. And now to just this past June, we moved into 50,000 square foot space over at like the Pegasus Park campus across from Community Brewing. Yeah. And we're adding more space too. So like it's just growing and growing and growing. And we have more than 185 people.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's a lot of growth in 4 years.
Yeah. So there's a lot on the horizon.
That's
So one
growing.
thing I'm excited about is, in January, we'll release our first annual conservation impact report. So you get to see all these stories in a very colossalized publication. And then we've got, like I said, we've got species that we'll be announcing that we're working on that we haven't announced yet. We'll have species that we're announcing to the world, our first successes, things like that.
Oh, cool.
So 26 is going to be a pretty crazy year. I didn't think anything could get crazier than 2025 when we announced dire wolves.
You said you lost 10 years.
yeah. I'm not going to make it much longer.
No, Matt. We need it. We need you.
But I think that's that's what you'll see more of, is a lot of announcements of launching projects, completing a few projects, and then more funding. I think what's incredible is we get a lot of outreach, inbound people saying, "Hey, how do we contribute?"
Yeah.
Oh no, that's awesome.
I imagine when you make an announcement like that too, people are like, "This is so tangible of a thing and so exciting that they want to." They're like immediately like, "How do I get involved?"
Yeah, there's a clear vision where it's like, "Hey, we're bringing this back. We're bringing this back." And for those who don't know too, I mean, go to the website. It's a pretty unbelievable. I mean, you get to see some of the video footage of the Tasmanian tiger that is there, and they've done an awesome job. You said colossalizing. So I feel like that report will be a joy to look at. But for those who can't wait, go to the website too. It's
definitely
awesome.
Yeah, and the YouTube channel is great as well. If you're really into watching those wolves grow up, they've done a great job documenting their whole life, and there's a lot of stories. So they just celebrated their first birthday in October.
Oh, nice!
They got a big blood sickle cake, so frozen blood pops and everything, and then,
Dude,
incredible
amazing
stuff. So.
A dire wolf, that's crazy.
So just wrapping up, I mean, I'm curious what. I think people listening to this conversation, hopefully they have a better understanding of the work that Colossal's doing. Yeah. But even still, I know there's going to be skeptics, people that are skeptical out there that think, somehow this is a Dr. Moreau level, sci-fi experiment. What would you say to the person who maybe, has a misconception about what you're doing or maybe is scared? Yeah.
Well, I think, the brand is really exciting, and the production of the brand is really well executed. I think that almost works against us for some of those skeptics. This is too polished.
It's too good. This is not a government agency.
Yeah, exactly. You have money? What's happening?
Why do you look so good? That's fair.
But I think, taking a step back from that, we're just people just like you. We just have this wild idea, and it caught fire, and we're so fortunate. We're so lucky. I spent more than 15 years working in big zoos in the United States, just trying to kill myself to save one species, right? What we represent now is maybe the greatest opportunity to have a broad impact across species conservation that I've seen in my career. That might come packaged in a way that you're not used to, but I promise you is needed, because we are sitting at the precipice of this cascade of negative events that will lead to horrific biodiversity loss. Talking over the next 25 years, we could lose up to half of our biodiversity. So we have to take these drastic measures. We need innovative solutions. So I can understand it's uncomfortable, but guess what? You should be uncomfortable because things aren't good, and we need something to try to pull us out of this spiral.
So thinking 25 years down the road, you kind of just painted the picture of what this could be if you guys don't exist, but you guys do exist. What do you hope 25 years down the road looks like with Colossal's involvement in biodiversity and just in conservation in general? What does it look like 25 years from now?
I hope we broke the ice and there's 25 more Colossals, not exactly in the genetic engineering space, but in whatever that field is. We need 25 more billion-dollar ideas that are going to go and make drastic change and help scale and accelerate conservation. So hopefully we act as a bit of an inspiration to others to create a huge moonshot company and have huge impact.
Cool.
I hope that's it. But I also hope that we'll see, amazing animals back in the landscape that are helping reverse all of the negative things that we've done, helping remove invasive species from habitats, helping accelerate habitat restoration. So, we'll see, in 25 years, go to Tasmania and you'll see thylacine running around the landscape.
Amazing.
Yeah, go to Mauritius, you'll see dodos helping spread seeds again, right? And helping proliferate the native forest. Only 2% of that remains in Mauritius. So, I'm really hopeful that we'll see those really cool things. But more importantly, I think this could be sort of that butterfly effect of inspiration across the conservation space that changes the way that we conserve nature today.
It feels weird, but it's almost like you're like re-eating, like Eden, like you're like kind of redoing this, like restoring to the natural. Like you said, 2% of that forest is like, if we introduce this, like this kind of comes back to that. I don't know. It can sometimes feel too perfect, but like I do love that idea of the restorative kind of like side of this.
And the rewilding movement is huge right now. This is this idea that we can sort of seed nature to restore itself, right? And so if we put specific species back in the right circumstances, they can take care of themselves. Nature's really powerful. It's incredible. It's resilient. We have to give it space to thrive, and we also have to give it maybe just a little kickstart, and that's what species conservation does. That's
fascinating. I got one last question about, well, maybe I have like 20 more, but like Dallas Zoo connection, because I love that this company exists in Dallas, and that the chief animal officer is in Oak Cliff. He's a neighbor.
I mean, come on, y'all. That's pretty cool.
But yeah, connections. Do you guys work with the Dallas Zoo in any way now, or is that like, are there partnerships in some ways that like you said you work with different zoos around the whole country? But like, how does that? I'm just curious if there's.
It depends. There are some partners that we have that have specific needs of like technology can make a big difference. And, I know Chris and Chris Corpus really well. Lisa used to be my neighbor. She was like,
cool,
CEO of Dallas Zoo. It was like 2 doors down. So, and she and I worked together before.
That's fun.
So there's great connections to Dallas Zoo, and we'd love to always support them. But Chris is crushing it without us. So, he's doing great work. And he and I talk a lot. So I'm sure we're going to find some projects to collaborate on, which will be really exciting. But I think more than anything, people should be really proud that they're home to a zoo that does what Dallas Zoo does for the conservation space. And they should be really proud that a sort of a moonshot company, a $10 billion, fastest growing company in Texas history.
I mean,
that's
Colossal?
Crazy.
Colossal.
Yeah.
Dude, breaking news to Doug. Right now. I didn't know that.
Was born and bred and thriving right here in Dallas. So I want people to always take that Dallas pride for what Colossal is. And, what's amazing is like you guys were telling a funny story about a friend that's got a Colossal shirt. I had a friend that was in Indonesia, and his taxi driver was wearing a Colossal shirt.
Get out of here. I love
like
it.
that idea to me that this was like,
that is
we were
mind-blowing,
this little
actually.
small shared office, and now there's like
Continental
some
Gin,
guy
in Indonesia wearing a
wearing
Colossal
the shirt. I love that impact. It's incredible.
That's amazing. I love the international, just immediate appeal of something like that. That's so cool.
Dude, we need to move that PO box from Austin to Oak Cliff.
Let's
do it. I want.
Well, Matt, thank you so much, man, for
thanks for
jumping on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for sharing Colossal with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I love Oak Cliff. I love Dallas. I'm a transplant, but it's home now. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Hidden City. We hope you discovered something about Oak Cliff that you didn't know. If you enjoyed the show, I hope you subscribe to it on YouTube and then follow us on any of the podcasting platforms. Also, if you enjoyed it, please share with a friend, and thanks so much for tuning in.